Once we measure all of the delays in between the activities, it gives us an idea of where the most time is being spent and how that time is being spent. And we don't know in detail yet, but we do have a good idea of where we can focus and perhaps where we can dig deeper. And this is where the additional data comes in valuable, because if I have a value stream of 20 stages and there's a hotspot in only 3 of those stages and the rest of it looks fine, I don't need to go digging for tons of information on the rest of the value stream unless I'm looking for something else. If I'm looking for, let's say, quality issues, then I would go and I would measure quality across the value stream, and I would try to find out where's the hotspot from a quality perspective. You could also look at value added time, for instance. So how much time is spent actually delivering something that the customer would pay for, that the customer would be happy to pay for. And that's usually a small subset of the cycle time, right? Because what's involved in the cycle time is, getting your task set up, understanding what you need to do, maybe spinning up a testing environment. Maybe it's conversations with other folks because the instructions weren't clear. All that is not time that your customer is happy to pay for. They want to pay for the time that you spend building the thing that they want. So we can measure the difference between all the time that's being taken and the time that's actually spent on delivering value. And that can be very revealing, and that can reveal a different hotspot. But it really depends on what the focus of the exercise is. And that's one thing I didn't mention yet, but I really should mention, is that before you embark on a value stream mapping exercise, it's really important to understand, what do you expect to get out of this? What's the goal? The goal is to go faster, to improve quality. It could be to improve employee experience. Let's say you have tons of people leaving, or you're afraid that you're going to lose a lot of staff. You can measure the employee experience across the value stream and what it's like to be working inside of that value stream. And that's going to inform what you measure, right? That can be challenging to measure, but you can absolutely measure it. And you can measure a lot of things inside of a value stream. And I'll get into a little bit of what you can measure on top of this basic backbone of steps and timing. But just for simple illustration purposes, and to sort of highlight what we get out of this process, you'll see that I've emboldened some of this text here, where we're taking a little bit more time than other areas of the value stream. Some of these things take a lot of time, but they're not highlighted, like development, because time that you spend on development isn't necessarily time wasted. It could be, but I wouldn't necessarily highlight it as a hotspot just because it takes a significant amount of time. But planning, for instance, planning is something that your customers usually don't want to pay for. They just want you to know what to do and do it, right? So time spent doing, they'll give a thumbs up to. Time spent planning, unless they can see a distinct value from that effort, they probably want you to spend it as little time as possible. So that could be something that we highlight and maybe we look at in more detail. But the one thing that stands out in this example is this environment setup. And this could be standing up a test environment. It could be setting up a local environment. It could be accessing an environment, or just refreshing it, right? It could be any number of activities. I agree. Planning is the most important part, and it should take a appropriate amount of time. It doesn't have to take a long time, doesn't have to be quick, but it needs to be effective. And so in a lot of teams, I find that planning takes a long time and it's not necessarily effective. So I end up looking at planning almost in every value stream that I look at. We highlight planning as an issue. But in this case, for illustrative purposes, we're looking at environment setup. And the reason why this stands out is because we've got 3 days of delay before it even starts. It takes a week, which is a week that your customers really don't care about, right? they don't even know that you're doing that, but they definitely don't want to pay you for it. And then 2 days afterwards, it waits before anybody even tests the outcome of that activity. So this is a notable issue in the value stream. And we would call this a constraint, right? This is where everything slows down. This is where, there's a significant impact to the velocity across the value stream, the flow of the work across the value stream.